as well. Double Charm's going to come out as Inspired flashes away from the damage there from Skeens. The shuffle in from Larssen. Skeens gets his face broken in two.
Way too controlled, way too patient, but meanwhile in the mid lane, Hylissang's getting him kicked off. The pullback, that's a clean combo! Fnatic put all the pieces of the puzzle together and come out swinging.
Rogue are very versatile. They can play multiple different styles. They have wide champion pools.
This was a team that I think was fairly unanimously expected to be like 4th or 5th, and they're quite comfortably there.
The number one takeaway is the fact that Fnatic are better in 2020 than they were in 2019.
Welcome back everyone to the Analyst Desk for our final game of the week, Fnatic versus Rogue. First up, I would like to give you all a little update in terms of the playoffs. These are the standings as they are now, and all 6 of our playoff teams are locked, meaning 2020 playoff teams G2, Origin, Fnatic, Mad Lions, Misfits, and Rogue. So yeah, these are our playoff teams, and it's in line, I think, of what we expected in some regards, but some other surprises are there as well.
I think, I think everyone kind of hoped for a miracle run from XL, but they did show a lot of signs already of weakness against Vitality. I think as the weeks progressed, it was pretty evident that these teams were our top 6 teams. At the beginning of the split, maybe it was a bit more difficult because I think we only called out Rogue, Fnatic, Origin, and G2 to be first place. Top 4, and Misfits and Mad Lions being a very pleasant surprise.
Indeed, so the race that is still very important is also that for top 4 that is not locked. G2, Origin, and Fnatic are in that top 4, but Mad Lions, Misfits, and Rogue all still have a chance to get there. Fnatic will lock if they win here versus Rogue, and this is the match on the slate. Fnatic versus Rogue, which as we saw now in the XL versus G2 game, that was just a stomp. Will it go similarly here, or does Rogue has a better chance to upset Fnatic?
I think Rogue probably has a better chance of upsetting Fnatic, but my money would still be on Fnatic. I think this team is just so solid right now, and there's 2 things that I think they really excel at. One is how they play the map, and the other is how they team fight. In the way they play the map, we talk about how they find all these TP plays early on, but it's how instantly they're all willing to commit to a play. It's like they really are of one mind, and then how they come out of these plays as well. They're always, making sure that they're not losing waves on the opposite side of the map. And then also, when they're setting up their fights, I just love how players like Hylissang or Selfmade are able to find these super sick flanks in order to make it work out almost every time.
I feel like the key difference maker between this matchup and in general when Rogue faces a team that is better than them in Origin, Fnatic or G2, I feel in the case of Fnatic, they're just better at pressuring together. I think when Rogue get the prior from lane phase, for example, they have an Azir in mid that gets prior or whatever, then they know how to use it. They know how to dive into bottom, dive into side, set up the plays. But then when getting that pressure becomes a bit more complicated because Hylissang is roaming, because the jungler is doing creative pathings in terms of self-made. I feel like Fnatic as a whole just know how to get that extra pressure, know how to figure out that little puzzle in the beginning of the game, and this is where I feel like Rogue always slows down against the best of the best.
But now they have to do it. As said, this is a very important game for Rogue to also keep their chances on a top 4, and with our new playoff format, that's incredibly important because that would mean that they get a chance for another match. They're not immediately out if they lose a game in playoffs. Rather, so Ender, can you boil it down for me? If this Rogue is going to upset Fnatic, where do they attack this so strong Fnatic team?
I think it's almost always going to be the right call to go top lane early when you're playing against Fnatic. A, Bwipo likes to play aggressively, so he sometimes leaves himself vulnerable. And B, you want to make him use his TP to get back to lane. Then you can look to other areas on the map. But it comes to strong jungler and early top pressure, I think, is almost always going to be a good bet for you.
Alright, let's see what happens. There is so much on the line for Rogue as they fight to make it into the top 4. Let's see how they do.
Thank you very much, Shocks. I'm Dracos, once again, joined by FLICKR, and no swaps
Have you
this
noticed
time.
how lovingly my photo looks at yours?
Yeah, I really appreciate it. If I would have known, I would have picked a photo that looked back, Or maybe we can ask specifically for duo photos. I know we have
Zaya
a bunch.
Rakan?
Please no.
I'm sorry, I sidetracked you. That was my fault. I will take responsibility there. Continue, Draco.
Look, okay, so here's the thing about these games now, is that the sad state of things for the bottom 4 teams is that their games are no longer as important, right, because we have top 6 locked in. But for when top teams play top teams, so when anyone in the top 6 plays anyone else in the top 6, all those games are now doubly important. Because if Fnatic wins here, they lock top 4 alongside Origin, alongside G2, meaning there's only 1 spot left in top 4. And with the new playoffs format, yes, people will be sacrificed to Cthulhu, but more seriously, like, you don't want to be 5 and 6. Top 4 is hugely important for Rogue. Beating Fnatic, definitely the best first step they can make.
Yeah, and it also, I personally feel like, throws the entire bracket into chaos if Fnatic and G2 aren't top 2, because then you're theoretically looking at a position like if Fnatic are 3 or 4, like G2 picks probably the 4th place team, and then that means that you potentially have a Fnatic versus Origin, and yeah, you get a second chance because you are top 4, but like, you know, right out the gate, Origin's like, we were supposed to get an advantage having come in second, like, what is this?
Oh no, it's actually a nightmare. This is one of the situations where you're like, oh man, how good is it to be anything other than first place? Definitely a tough question. We look at the bans though, it looks like a decent focus on 80 carries, 3 of them taken away in the Kalista, the Senna, and the Aphelios. Aurelia banned out as well, with the Bust to play the Rune King makes a lot of sense. Pantheon Syndra, very standard. The thing I love most about this draft is not that blind pick Ornn, that I find generally questionable, but it's Rekkles' bicep. This is something we never get to see. I didn't know we had this photo, Frostgurn, but that chonky Rekkles bicep right there, that's the kind of energy he's bringing to this game, I feel like.
Rekkles, look, it's us!
Yay! Wait, this is great. I love this from Rogue.
It is great. Yeah.
But the problem...
Yes, right. Yeah, Rekkles has really nice tattoos. I always admire them. Super cool. You get to see them there. I don't know how I'm supposed to follow.
You didn't have to follow up on that.
You could have threw the ball, and I had to go get it.
No, you didn't have to go get it. You said it's us.
Okay, right.
You transitioned us out. Don't bring us back to the bicep point.
Then I'm going to completely Ornn, first pick, into Xayah Rakan. Xayah
Yes.
Rakan, one of the few bot lanes that can auto-win, especially early level. I assume then that Inspired isn't going to have him leash for him, that they're going to get to the wave first. And obviously when you're against the likes of Rekkles and Hilly, you get a really strong bot lane. So the immediate response, boom, give me the Ezreal. That's fine. Hilly's going to be on something that roams, or potentially the Yuumi if it's not pinched ban here in secondary ban phase. And Rekkles is like, I'm just going to chill back with the Ezreal. You can have your Xayah Rakan. I'll see you post lane phase, guys.
But the thing is, with Fnatic now locking in the Gragas, it's very easy for Rogue to take away something like the Yuumi, something else that could possibly come out. You know, like we've seen Nautilus come in. I don't think it's the best in this matchup, but a lot of freedom for Rogue to just shut down bot lane.
Yeah, and it's because Fnatic don't need the Yuumi to make the Ezreal Yuumi work. Again, if they get it, we know that they'll play it. But if Yuumi is pinched here, which then just forces Rogue to ban it, like, Rekkles is so good at playing weak side, you just throw Hilly on a roaming support, and Rekkles farms from afar with Mystic Shot, and Hilly starts showing up in Bwipo's lane, in Nemesis' lane.
And this is a thing that we see a lot of teams try to do, and I don't entirely understand it. Maybe it works for teams in Scrim, but attacking Fnatic through the bottom lane always feels like the wrong choice, because Fnatic of all teams are the most aware, the most willing to burn TPs to set their bot lane up for success. So while I think the draft is great for Rogue, I still want to see that execution. I still want to see them pull something off. I do like that they're taking away the fresh from Hylissang. He had a monster performance on it yesterday. You saw on some of those B-roll packages, the highlights, him, you know, kind of threading the needle on the hook, but definitely going to be mostly about execution if they want to take Rekkles out of this game.
Good luck with that one. I do want to kind of echo some of the sentiments from the analyst desk, that it feels like when you want to attack Fnatic, you try to attack Bwipo because he does have tendencies to leave himself exposed. Now, of course, that Ornn could still technically be a flex pick. I actually think it's going to be Nemesis' champion, pending what happens here on secondary ban phase. Fnatic obviously banning a lot of easy blind pickable champions, as well as comfort picks like the Azir for Larssen that Yamato talked about on the analyst desk, so I still feel that it's going to be an Ornn mid, but we'll see. There's the Yuumi that we talked about.
Taking away the scaling champs means you have to take something potentially a little bit more volatile in it. I wonder if we see his core key banned away as well. But yeah, you said it. The Yuumi now taken off the board, so the standard kind of Ezreal Yuumi bot lane will be limited away. Have to see where into the champion pool Hylissang wants to reach. Obviously, a guy that I would prefer to see on engaged champions. We'll see how defensive Fnatic want to get. I can't imagine we'd see a Tahm Kench, but they've done it before. So
maybe
just
Zach.
ready. Ooh. Now that I do like. That is a bit of a curveball. It seems like it's terrible into Rakan and Xayah, but I would love to see it anyway.
Another blind pickable champion like an Aatrox banned away, so this should be a safe blind from Rogue here. Orianna certainly makes sense. Again, kind of feeds into Larssen. I think if they take Zach, it's because they are being cheeky about the hovers. Okay.
Interesting. So maybe trying to
defensive.
match the Ornn? Yeah.
It's either you put it into the Ornn, and it's exactly what you're saying. You get like a free lane phase, but also you're really defensive because you have access to pool. And if you like, depending on what Fnatic show here with their 2 picks, you just protect yourself as well as the ability for it to be flex between Larssen and Finn.
Ooh. And I like the set hover. I want to see where they're going to put this Vladimir, but for now it seems like I get to hear them match the Ornn. But as the set now gets locked in, it looks more and more likely that we're going to have that Ornn in the mid lane, potentially a Pyke to round it out. So have to wait to see what Hylissang's final lock-in will be, but for now, a lot of champions being flexed around thus far. Just a question of, I guess, what Hylissang is going to play here.
Is it Hilly's set? Is he playing set support?
I mean, we've heard the rumors of the set.
I think it's
Hilly's
set support.
Ornn. I think it's Hilly Ornn.
Okay.
Oh no,
what you got?
it's Ornn. I'm gonna say
It's either Ornn or
Ornn
set top.
It's Ornn or set. Because there's no way it's Cassio. If it's Cassio, we're too deep and I want out.
It's definitely not Cassio. Okay. Before Fnatic figure out what's happening over there, it is going to be the Victor locked in. So it's Finn with Vladimir. Again, very safe solo lanes for Rogue here. You have a good bridge champion with Lee Sin to get them through the early game. Victor also does spike exceptionally well because he has cost-efficient itemization and a super powerful bot lane. Like, you have all the ingredients that Rogue really need, and that they have decent scaling potential. They have a top laner that can play weak side really well because it's still dangerous to dive with Vladimir. And then they have the ability to get priority in their lanes with Victor and Rakan to help set up Inspired when he wants to make those sideline dives. And on the other side, it's Set, baby!
See if they can lay down the punch. I like it. I love everything about the set support. I want to see exactly how this will work out. If you can interrupt the knockup, there's so much to say for this team composition, and it's confirmed. So now we are going to have that passive farm fest on the top side of the map, potentially passive in mid lane as well. But Frostgren, while I love the spiciness, the craziness of this Fnatic composition, I gotta say the scaling from Rogue looks pretty sick, and it's not like they don't have an early game either, so my hopes for Rogue have just increased on the back of this draft.
I mean, I think it's really clear how Rogue wants to play their team fights. Like, it's a very standard composition. That said, I don't feel that Rogue clearly have this scaling. We always like to talk about this on the LEC, that especially for a champion like Ezreal, his scaling is relative to the champions that he's versus and who has access onto backline. So your dive threat for Rogue are going to be your Lee Sin and your Rakan, and potentially your Vladimir, depending on how he itemizes. You know, if he has like the Proto Belt, he flies back there, does a bunch of damage. But if Ezreal survives all of that, then he gets to hit you from afar, and he scales exceptionally well, despite the fact that a lot of people try to paint Ezreal as just like this, oh, the Trinity Force power spike, 2-item power spike. Like, no. Ezreal does lots of damage, and he, like, hyper scales into games as long as there's no threat to him.
Alright, I'm ready to see it. Let's get into it. Our final game of Week 8, Rogue versus Fnatic. Alright, we got half of it, right? That was Rogue versus G2, but close enough. Rogue versus the top team, right? You take those.
Yeah.
Here we are.
We'll take them.
we'll take it. Alright, I mean, it wasn't quite the Fnatic pictures, but it works. Of course, Kia player of the game. You already voted for last game. Get ready to vote again for this game. And now Rogue, going for the spicy level 1 tech against Fnatic. Always a bold strategy.
I may be entirely wrong, but I was just watching this VOD, so I'm going to go on the limb here. A team... Mad, I believe it was, actually tried this level 1 against Rogue, and they almost caught Finn because Finn always walks to that same brush, and they had all 5 members stacking up into that try to catch when the top laner walked forward. So I'm actually curious, like, what's happening behind the scenes to make that the level 1 maneuver, but obviously if you are 5-man stacking up there, you're trying to catch out an unsuspecting top laner walking into that brush.
Bwipo doesn't even take the risk, Frostgren. And as important as like early jungle pathing is, especially in a game where there's a Lee Sin, I gotta ask you about set support. We've seen it. I've seen the rumors, the spicy tech. I know about the Hex Flash setup. I think that's cool. But like, what do you think about this champion?
I mean, Hex Flash I think is so crucial, and if you get priority over the brushes, I've played it a couple of times with Medic. You stand in that brush, you Hex Flash at people, and because of like how tanky your shield is and how much damage, you feel pretty free to do that. Now, obviously against a Xayah, running into her, she really, like, champions who run forward at Xayah, she excels into when she has access to pull back her feathers and then kind of, like, chase you down. So Hilly does have to be a bit careful about how he's going to set up on this one on set, just because I feel like his trading patterns are pretty binary and that he does have to run at you when Xayah likes that.
And see what Hylissang can do for now. Vander hovering in the bush, but interestingly enough, Frosker, and the other thing that we have to point out is that Nemesis has gone into the top lane to go toe-to-toe with the Vladimir in the early game. Meanwhile, Hylissang gets caught out. That's not going to amount to too much damage to the Haymaker there, and that of course means, in the meantime, that Bwipo's now in the mid lane against the Victor. So I like that we're seeing the lane swap come out from Fnatic, still setting up Nemesis to play the Comfort Cassio rather than swapping champions.
And it's going to be so easy for this Ornn to itemize because you are also dealing with Victor and Vladimir. So even as Larssen and Finn kind of try to swippy swap if they want to get away or get around from this Ornn and try to get this Cassio again, like Bwipo doesn't get punished following them around the map because he's going to go for that Abyssal Mask and be completely fine.
That just feels so difficult then as we get more into the team fight phase. Even if the Vladimir and Victor are obviously going to get more and more scary, those early to mid-game skirmishes when he does have that first item, it's going to be nigh impossible for him to get shut down, and it's not like Ornn doesn't also do a lot of damage on this patch as well. Her Selfmade. Work his way bottom. You don't always expect the Ezreal lane to be the center of attention, but now the setup as well. The Facebreaker coming out from Hylissang. Hansama trying to run for his life. The Haymaker's already there. Good interrupt coming in from Vander. May have to give his own life from this one, but he's going to dash out to safety. Moving in with the barrel. Inspired's now here as well. They need to get a kill. This fight could turn against them, but Inspired there to body block, and Rogue are going to walk away.
Yeah, and you called it right there. Vander really saving the day, making sure that he had the proper target selection to interrupt Selfmade. Selfmade with some creative pathing, now skirmishing in the jungle.
Inspired potentially over-aggressive, but can just ward hop right out to safety. Does give up his trinket and potentially now the Scuttle Crab as well for that one, but good to kind of check to see if Hylissang was still in the area.
I think that's just some of Selfmade's creative pathing. You could tell that Hansama and Vander were trying to get the bounce off of the tower, but couldn't quite get there in time. Like, you don't necessarily expect Gragas to be there at that point. The fact that he, like, hard cleared and then sprinted bottom, ran past all of his card camp, saw the gank opportunity, and then tried to force it there. And again, credit to Vander to make sure that Fnatic couldn't punish it. Ah, there we go. There's some of the cool tools as you see how Rakan is using his W to get around the set. What is it called? The face pull?
Yeah, the Facebreaker. The little pull in there.
Facebreaker. Haymaker, Facebreaker. What's the Q called?
Double down. Double down. That's my.
I'm really testing your knowledge here.
I'm not. I could press tab and I could guess, but I'm just actually gonna play the game, and now Hylissang might be losing as well. Big haymakers.
Oh my god!
Not gonna quite be enough. Vander clenching on that one as he zooms his way out to safety, but Hylissang lives too. That passive health regen.
Selfmade. Okay, everyone's gonna walk away.
Gonna take it. Oh no, except for Bwipo. Here we go. Big flips. Big flips.
Oh, he got out!
Nothing. Vander can't die. He's actually immortal. They've thrown everything they can at this little Rakan, and he simply refuses. Well played again by Vander.
That is so well played from Rogue. They've survived two just nefarious ganks there from Fnatic. I'm trying to think of a better word right there, but so clutch from Rogue to just scrape out of that one. As we now see the TPs come, I'm looking at top lane, like, did Bwipo sacrifice anything for that? No, Bwipo timed it perfectly, because again, he's not the top laner, he's the mid laner.
He's going
just got
mid,
trolled hard. Yeah, he just walked, never mind. I was like, what did he burn?
And imagine Nemesis right now. He's sitting pretty, right? Like, normally he has to worry about roaming, moving all across the map, and now he's just chilling, playing Farmville on top lane with the Victor, while Bwipo has to, I don't know, dive tier 2 bottom to try to get a kill on Vander. And I think this is the thing we have.
It was also a TP from Nemesis. Okay, there we go. Found it. I was like, someone had to lose somewhere here for Fnatic to get all 4 members to play on bot side because you had the double TP. Like, Bwipo TP'd back into lane, walked from mid lane, but Nemi TP'd down there. But look at his CS. He's fine. He's even with the Victor, and he's ahead of the Vladimir. So, like, Nemi must have hard shoved the way forward and then found the perfect window. Like, Fnatic didn't get punished for that at all.
Solid, and the only advantage they have is the Finn TP, and if they don't do anything with it, it won't amount to much. Vander once again making out with very little health, but once again, Fnatic are committed to extending this play. The Predator activated from Gragas. Inspired is here, he's only level 4. Here comes the horn. How much longer can Vander live? He's going to flash out from that one. Hansama's still alive, throwing down a few feathers. In fact, once again, walk away empty-handed. They're getting so much pressure, they're limiting so much CS, they're going to grab tower plates, but they can't find a kill.
Huge shout out to also Bwipo. That's now 2 really successful roams, even though it hasn't equated to any sort of kills. You just talked about the CS, the gold, the experience, the plates, the damage that Fnatic are doing into this bot lane, and it kind of goes back to the age-old mantra of like, do you really want to try to attack Fnatic in the bot lane? It feels like almost Zyrakon at this point, where like we just need a really strong bot lane to deal with Fnatic, and they are not able to like put their foot on the gas and try to do anything other than survive this right now.
Yeah, and you're at the point where when Hylissang has an XP advantage and no one really has any items in this lane, Set is a very big threat. Later, we can just expect the initiation, the haymaker, the big fat ultis, but for now, even with no items, just base stats on any kind of juggernaut are going to make it so hard to actually win any kind of 2v2 all-in, so Zyrakon is very much on the back foot.
Want to shout out, again, just how organized Fnatic are into their lane assignments and when they're walking back to the lanes. It was the fact that Bwipo, again, roamed from mid, tried to make a gank down bottom, zoned them off the tower, and then walked immediately top to catch a crashing wave. If he hadn't gotten that wave, suddenly Bwipo is like, what, 15, 20 CS down? But because he did, he's now, again, completely even with the Vladimir, who, while not technically his lane opponent, it's the fact that, like, Fnatic picked their windows and they set up the map so well for these plays that they're trying to do. A lesser team would have been really heavily punished on a roam like that because they wouldn't have timed the waves well enough.
And that's something that you've talked about a lot when it comes to Fnatic. How good they are at always making sure they get that wave, always making sure that they are taking, honestly, like, ultimately low-risk plays because of how good they are at moving across the map and minimizing that risk in the first place. But now we see Finn getting aggressive on the top side. Nemesis has to run for his life, trying to lay down a bit more damage. He's going to miss there on the ulti, and it should just be a matter of time before he drops. He's going to walk back into turret, just trying to buy time, just trying to mess with the waves, just trying to get as much as he can, but will get taken out for first blood. Well played by Finn.
Very patient. Ooh. Meanwhile, in the river, who got it?
Inspired? No, Selfmade.
Selfmade got it.
Does manage to get that one. Inspired will walk out, but very close.
And now you immediately see the on-the-way ping for the mid lane, but we're probably going to get some plates here. Selfmade's not walking. He's actually going to go catch the top wave. I was going to say, are they going to immediately drop the Herald and cash in plates here for Bwipo?
And remember earlier, Finn didn't burn the TP, so now he is able to TP back to the mid lane, making sure that Bwipo doesn't get anything back. So, while Fnatic definitely controlled the pace in the first few minutes of the game, I like that Rogue are fighting back, that they're starting to make moves of their own.
But now it's kind of where do they attack next on the map. You look across in itemization, it's really the Victor who's feeling pretty good. The Proto Belt's now completed for Vladimir. It's certainly going to help out his wave clear and give that much needed priority that the analyst desk was talking about. Rogue, they're not as, how do I want to phrase this? Wave priority is really important to them because it feels like it's obviously like a core fundamental of the league, and for a team that is still kind of like young players building up their synergy, it's like the first building.
All right. Well, sounds like we've lost Indiana temporarily. Of course, the nature of the setup is a bit finicky, but I'll take over from here. That's right, folks. It's time for the Dracos solo cast. Potentially a temporary solo cast, but I've been here before. In 2016. It's been 4 years. Anyway, Finn's pushing into the mid lane. Interesting for anyone curious, the Cole has come out for the Vladimir. Obviously, very rarely would you see this, but when he expects to be laning against an Ornn, completely non-interactive, you might as well min-max your gold value out. It will be a positive gold as he moves later in the game, as it's already gotten the Proto Belt as well. Things pretty much just get easier for here. Now we have the full engage on the bottom side. Big Haymaker, but you can see every time CC is about to hit Hylissang, he uses the Haymaker. Cannot be interrupted by that knockup, and it makes it so difficult for Rogue to actually trade into him, to actually shred through that health bar, because unless they can win 100% all-in, they don't really have the sustained damage to work through the extra healing from the pots, as well as the passive. Now Fnatic set up to try to contest the Infernal Drake, but there are 4 members of Rogue here on the bottom side. They have TPs for Nemesis, but Bwipo's going to have to use the heal, or rather the Ignite, if he wants to get his own TP back, as he has used the Summoner Spellbook. A bit more kill pressure in the mid lane, but he's already mid, it's not going to amount to too much. It's easy for him to come to the next play. Forces out the Fool. Now he's going to look for the follow-up here. Big engage now coming in. Good damage from Finn. That's going to be a quick kill pickup for Bwipo.
All right, exciting stuff. Hello, Dracos. The surprise Ender has entered the building here to tap in for
Hello.
there.
Thank you. I was enjoying my time color casting. But you're here now, and there's a Herald being used mid, and I'm going to need you to stop talking again because we have a fight. That's going to be a kickback. Instantly the Victor ult comes out, but it's too little too late. Clean Flash comes in from Inspired, though, wants to get things started off, wants to go back in onto Selfmade, and he's going to grab that kill. Bwipo. Now potentially they're going to be in trouble, though, because here comes Nemesis TPing into the mid lane. Wants to get more done. Focusing down his tower, but nothing is going to come from it.
Ooh, I like that punish a lot right there from Rogue. Now, with Selfmade down, you'd think maybe you can move in towards the Dragon at a time like this if you are Rogue, but Fnatic still hold control, and they might even want to do something themselves. Look at Bwipo and Nemesis running down into the river. Hansama and Vander are going to have to give up this tower, which just means Fnatic going to keep winning out in the gold. And with this control, too, I figured they can just reset after clearing this wave and look for an Inferno themselves.
And while Finn's been doing okay, and obviously you can see the CS for the Victor is working really well, for a Xayah Rakan bot lane, I feel like Rogue are suffering a lot more than I expected them to. They are definitely getting the short end of the stick. A lot of it's how much attention was paid to the bottom side, but a huge, massive CS discrepancy between Hans, Sama, and Rekkles, which definitely not what they need when you're looking at a 3-item carry.
Yeah, I wish I could tell you this was all the 6-set support counter pick, but I think it has just been Fnatic pretty much as a team here. We see the replay one more time. It is a good start here from Fnatic to take out Finn, and then they think, hey, let's knock down some turret plates, but Inspired waited in this brush the entire time on this push, just saying, hey, can we get the TP in? TP in, please, now? Okay, good. And now they can come in and go for the squishy target, which has to be the correct option, and a really sick flash there from Inspired, too. Didn't catch that the first time, but to dodge out from the cask meant that they were able to finish off the kill before the TP could come through.
And a bit tragic there, because Victor's one of the, I think, the worst champions at TPing in to do something. He's good at TPing for waves, he's good at TPing for position, but like, when a Victor TPs on you, you just walk away from him, right? And that's kind of what we saw there. As great as Inspired was, Larssen threw his ult down, Kragus dashed away. He had no mana, and he did nothing for the rest of the fight. So a bit of a sad state there for our boy Larssen. Despite the CS, the damage wasn't there. The setup doesn't really work when Victor's TPing, and he's just not that menacing. In the meantime, after that replay, it looks like Fnatic have managed to secure the Infernal Drake for themselves, while Larssen just continues to get more resources funneled into him on this Victor. As we all will come out, and Nemesis will return to the top side of the map.
Yeah, right now, Larssen is quite rich, even with all the lane swap shenanigans that had been going off. He's fully upgraded his Hex Core as well, too, which is just going to continue to give him more and more AP per level. But Hylissang, uh-oh!
Knockups there, no chance to use the Haymaker, just deleted. And that is definitely the setup you want as a Victor. Someone else locks him down, and you just get to push all your buttons and watch him die.
Yeah, that's the feels good right there, too, especially because Rift Herald's going to be spawning very soon, so Hylissang will have respawned by the time that the Herald does get onto the map, but don't think he should be able to run around fast enough. Look at this, though.
Up there on a Nemesis.
No.
They're running at him. Very difficult to leap into a Cassio, Ender. If you run face first into a Cassio, you're probably going to die.
I thought there was going to be some sort of sick ward hop over the wall and go flash, but he didn't have that.
Uses his ult, but Selfmade doesn't want to commit there, so I think the rest of the team will back off.
Okay, that's just a little awkward now, because now Selfmade's trying to get involved. Like, both teams just waiting to throw stuff out, but no ultimate on the Cassio means Selfmade's going in by himself.
Okay, I still hasn't proc Predator. We'll use it in the end. Vander trying to make it out. Huge flat forward. Hylissang now trying to find somebody to pull back. That's going to be the dunk down. Vander's going to be in trouble. Tries to buy a bit more time. The gravity field is there, and Vander finally drops. All this time, finally, Fnatic find their man. They take down the support from the bottom side.
Okay, like, real talk, though, that cask from Selfmade was so sick. Like, right on the edge, getting 2 targets knocked back beautifully. If you'll notice, Nemesis didn't get an assist there. That was just Hylissang and Selfmade that finished that one off, but just really insane stuff from him.
And now they're going to grab their second Herald game, which is just excellent. We'll let them break down another tower. Of course, plate's no longer really an objective, but Inspired has to be careful here. They're just going to kick Hylissang right in the face, send him out of that one, but Finn is now on the way into the Vladimir. Will do good damage, but because they're moving through the pinch, they're not really going to get a chance to contest this one. Hansama not going to be a massive threat as he pushes in from the side. Xayah just not scary at this point in the game.
Nope, not just yet. So it is Fnatic picking up all the objectives, it would seem, for now. Let's see this play one more time, because again, like, Nemesis lands the ultimate, but Selfmade wasn't feeling it right at the start. He's like, no, let's wait until Hylissang gets a little bit closer as he channels up the Predator. And then, even though everything goes wide at the start, I just want you to look at the picture-perfect ultimate right here on Vander and Larssen. A boom! Like, Larssen was standing right in the middle of that. He thought he was safe, but no, he got slammed back there, and then of course, Hylissang comes in to help things out at the end as well.
Yeah, redemption for the Flash face breaker that did not quite work out, but obviously Fnatic now starting to pull ahead in this game. They already have 3 towers to the 1 of Rogue. They're down in kills. It won't be consequential or that consequential because there's still 1,400 gold in the league, and Rekkles is about almost 2 items deep, whereas we have just now 1 and no boots 2 for Hans Sama, so things looking a little bit rough for the fights to come on the side of Rogue.
Now, the fun thing is that we're probably just going to keep getting 5v5 fights over and over and over again once our neutral objectives start spawning, because this isn't really a game where I feel like there's a ton of emphasis put on, like, going into a side lane. Like, sure, Cassiopeia and Victor have TPs, but if they're matching up in a side lane, it's probably just gonna be like wave clear duty for both of those sides. Instead, like, you have some pretty beefy damage dealers, especially on the Rogue side with those AoEs of the Victor plus Vlad later on. Like, I think both teams are gearing up for the full team fights.
And this is something that we've seen Rogue excel at in the past. You know, usually you think of Larssen as a big control mage player. Normally it's the Azirs and Corkis of the world, but the Victor as well definitely fits into that category. And we've seen what Finn can do in team fights on the Vladimir too. So the later we go, the more faith I feel like I have in Rogue. And pretty easy to have that set up until Nemesis lands a beautiful, all the dunk down is there from Hylissang, and this is montage material. Hylissang will drop in the end of the gravity field, but a beautiful turn from Fnatic turns disaster into a 1-for-1.
Yeah, it ends up being even overall because that was a classic Rogue play. You will notice in every single game that Rogue plays, it is Inspired and Vander like walking into side lanes, like, can we find the pick here or there? Can we make this happen? And it's often how they can either get their leads or try and convert it into a little bit more. So just the fact that Nemesis was able to fire back right there is able to stop the bleeding just a little bit. To be fair, though, without any objectives on the map, it probably wouldn't have converted into much anyways. We'll see it one more time because, like, again, Rogue think they have the jump here. They are going into the Fog of War, though, with the control ward over. And it is the triple stun there from Nemesis. Really nasty stuff, meaning that Larssen just couldn't get the damage down onto him.
Yeah, and we see Vander just barely able to touch him with just the end of the quickness as he dies. So, good turn, good quick reaction to the play happening in front of them. Rogue's still able to get 1, so it's not the end of the world, but obviously giving up so many resources means it's that much easier for Fnatic to take an objective like this. And keep in mind, we do still have the Herald available for Selfmade. So when Fnatic want to push next, they have everything that they want to set it up. They've got an Ezreal to kind of poke down into the tower. They've got a ton of hard engage. They've got the Ornn ult too. And I think if you're Rogue, you have to just be ready to turn and burn and take the fight.
Yeah, I mean, you're definitely going to have to be ready to go for the 5v5s. You know who else is ready to fight? Is Hylissang in the bot lane. He doesn't think he's a support, though. I think he's a little confused. He went for the dead man's plate here on the set, just try and run people down. This is kind of a fun one, because it's something you'll see a lot when you've got the melee tank supports with a fasting Senna. He's got an Ezreal in this game, though, but still, I can sort of see the merit, right, when you consider Set's problem is all about target access, so it's either that or a Righteous Glory when you're trying to speed people down and lock them up here, so I'm curious how that'll play out when we get later in.
Sneaky Finn, that's a big flank.
He literally did this same play yesterday.
He just missed, though, on the Tides of Blood. That's going to be a little bit awkward there. The kick going to come through and not going to hit the target they want. Everybody's missing their ultimates left and right, and nobody's going to get a kill, unless Vander has something to say about it. But no, Glasgow potentially going to take them out. Nemesis does get taken down, so it's a bit chaotic to start. But now Bwipo's caught in no man's land. Good news is, no physical damage present in this fight quite yet, so Bwipo just gets to have a heyday, and now Rekkles is here for the cleanup, the dunk down. Hylissang trying to make some value out of that dead man's plate, and now Hans Sama just barely able to escape. A beautiful snare there on the back of the fight.
Yeah, Fnatic somehow are always able to turn around these classic Rogues plays, because I can promise you, if you go back to 25 minutes in Rogue's game yesterday, Finn is sitting in that same bush waiting for his team to come so they can get a pick onto a side laner. So, like, Fnatic are just being aware of this and monitoring their side lanes very, very well. This is something that they are very strong at, is knowing how to play the overall map, and is one of the things that puts a gap between them and the rest of the teams, you know, towards the middle of our pack.
And I think just this is such an important game for Fnatic, too, that they're able to counteract these plays, they're able to find these wins, because this locks them top 4. And when you look back at this play, I'm going to be honest, it's an absolute mess ender, but all that matters is that they make the best out of it.
Yeah, the Hemo Plague... Oh no, it's the Tides of Blood that ends up missing. Okay, so not quite as bad as I thought, but the Nemesis ults the completely wrong direction. Both teams are like, wait, should we keep fighting? I guess so. Flash over the wall to finish that one off, but at that point they have extended themselves pretty far, and Rogue get locked up in a really awkward position based on the terrain. They get split up, and it just means that Larssen doesn't really have a good way to escape from this fight unless he was to ult a little, or flash rather, over that wall a little bit faster like Hansama did.
Ooh. And now as we look back at this, I'm just starting to wonder, when do Rogue finally find this fight? Because they're fishing. With everything they have, they are fishing. We can go back, if you want, Ender, talking about Animal Crossing, but this
dude,
I was
Rogue. Hoping
you
would
you were
say
ready.
that.
You were ready. I know what you've been doing. I know you haven't slept yet. I know it's all you've been doing all night long. I know you're in debt to that capitalist raccoon. I know your life right now. It's everybody's life right now. There's nothing else to do.
Nook is a good man.
All right.
What about fishing? Sorry, I was just thinking about Animal Crossing.
You're fine. Hold it down. I took us off the rails. I have to put us back on. I was saying that Rogue are just, it feels like Rogue are super duper fishing for these plays as a way to like stall out and buy more time to get later in the game. Is that a wrong read on this situation? Because otherwise, if they're not doing it to buy more time, I don't see why they wouldn't just, I don't know, wait for another item when they're getting really, really strong.
No, I mean, I think they definitely can, right? Especially when you have a Vladimir. Vladimir is just always going to offer you so much insane value later in the game. Like, he'll be able to jump into the Fnatic backline and, like, solo zone away those two players, which just buys so much space and time for Larssen and Hansama to get a ton done. So, you know, let him finish off the Zonias or the Rabadons. Maybe, you know, I'm not sure which direction he's going to go out of those two items just yet, but, like, let him get those items, and you're always going to have a ton of value. The later we do get.
Now Bwipo trying to get things kicked off. Hansama potentially in trouble here. Fight won't break out. And it's interesting because while Bwipo, probably unkillable, has MR, we do have some pen coming in from Vladimir now. That's going to be pretty huge. Not a lot from Victor. No one else on Fnatic has opted to buy any form of MR outside of the Merc Trends on Selfmade. So they are going to be super vulnerable to this combo if Rogue can pull it out. On the other side, though, the only AD source right now is Hansama. Maybe you could argue the Lee Sin, although I think Inspired maybe not the most reliable carry in a full-on front-to-back team fight. And Hansama is hurting this game. He is incredibly behind the clock.
Yeah, he needs money now because, I mean, Rekkles has been, you know, sped up even further past him thanks to the Trinity Force. He has to be sitting on a lot of money as well. Like, Hansama should have a finished Zeal item. Yeah, there it is, the rapid.
But right as we say that, now we see on the opposite side that we've got the Hex Drinker coming in from Rekkles.
Yeah.
So...
look, there's still a big gap. That is an 1,800 gold gap between the two carries, but it wasn't quite as dire, I think, as it looked before Hansama had come back to base. Now, that being said, I actually think one of the most important items in this game is what Bwipo is elected to go for. He got a Lock of the Iron Solari, which scales with your max HP, so Bwipo's going to be able to pop that and soak up a ton of the AoE damage coming through from the two AP solo laners of Rogue. And as soon as you're able to put that down when a Hebo play comes through, that all of a sudden gives your backline the ability to be not so scared when a Finn is diving into you, especially when he only is sitting at about, you know, 2.5 items right now. He's not at the point yet where he can cut through the Locket Shield plus the Seraph's Embrace Shield plus the Hex Drinker. Like, there's so much that he's going to have to get through, and honestly, I don't think he's going to be able to do that for quite some time.
And I think the thing that we're looking at here, like if we want to classify in weapons, like Fnatic are the machine gun, right? They can just keep firing. They got the Ezreal, they got the Cassio. Rogue are a shotgun because they don't have a tank. They don't have a front line. They go all in. They blow all their cooldowns. If they kill you, they win. But if they miss their shot, I don't know, the 2 minutes it takes them to reload, they're all going to die. They're all instantly, the fight is over. So all execution on the side of Rogue against a team like Fnatic who are so good at playing out in situations like this, it's a tall task.
Yeah, it definitely is, especially because there's a lot of like dive tools on the side of Fnatic too, so if you're not able to get that initial fight, like you're going to get chased down by a Set, by an Ezreal, by an Ornn. Like all of these champions do have very good reach and ability to make sure you're never going to be able to escape back to the safety of your tower. So Rogue for now just buckling down, but they're not going to be able to do that for much longer because, again, I think an Ocean Soul in a game like this is going to absolutely kill Rogue. You know, if you can't get that 100-0 burst threat from a Vladimir onto the backline, well, then you're not going to have that many good options the later we get into this game. So 3.5 minutes, I feel like Rogue are going to have to be able to draw the line then.
For now, Rogue just have to find some vision around this Baron Pit. We take a look at the map, and it's absolute control for Fnatic. The gold that they have is not insurmountable. Really, it's not. They've got scaling too on the side of Rogue, so it doesn't feel like the end of the world. But as you said, that Ocean Soul, the Baron buff, these are things that Rogue cannot afford to give up, or suddenly the game becomes nigh impossible to win if Fnatic are playing it out well. Now Rogue's still fishing for these picks, still maybe looking to set up onto Bwipo, trying to bait him in, but Bwipo is absolutely not afraid. Fnatic have the necessary vision. They've got the pressure in the mid lane. This gives them clear access to the Baron pit and into the jungle of Rogue. Rogue kind of in dire straits.
Yeah, I mean, they just don't have good options, right? How do they force a fight? Well, it's either a flank from Vladimir or probably a Rakan going in. Rakan, very squishy, very vulnerable, means that unless you're absolutely sure, you're never going to pull the trigger. So you keep seeing them trying to slide into these side lanes and make something happen. But with the amount of control Fnatic have over the map and how their lanes are all pushing in, it's a very different situation to, you know, the game state 10 minutes ago. Here we go, though.
Before the knockup comes through, he's going to use the Unstoppable, he's going to turn his sights onto Hans Sama. The TP now coming in, the rest of Rogue can look to collapse, but a TP responded. Rogue are looking, they see their fight, they see the opportunity, they see the setup, but Hylissang sees a chance to dunk down, and here comes the Ornn ultimate as well. Vander now running, Hans Sama unable to get any damage down. Larssen not going to get knocked back to the team. The Banshee's Veil saving his life in that scenario as they're all coming in. But it's not going to amount to much, just a single pick. But that is jungler down for the side of Rogue, and that spells disaster because Fnatic just set their sights on the Baron.
Yeah, Fnatic can take this so easily. I mean, Fnatic, I've never seen a team more willing to take 4v5 fights, because Rekkles was mid lane that entire time, but they still come up so big. Now Rogue, if they give up Baron, the game might as well be gone. They have to do something.
Larssen stepping forward, a lot of damage can come in. The face breakers there, Selfmade. Already has taken down the Baron, but still they're going to try to take the fight. Bwipo definitely overstaying that one, but he pops the locket. Now he's trying to make his way out. Finn goes right into the back line, and maybe this is the fight that Rogue have been waiting for. Goes under. He's going to have the Crimson Rush up and available. He wants to finish this one off, but now Selfmade's running. Rekkles is running, and Fnatic, they're going to make it out with their lives. They only lose Nemesis. Bwipo on slivers of life as he recalls.
Every single fight that Rogue tried to take, it's always a 1-for-1, so Fnatic get away with murder one more time. I mean, here, I feel like Rogue had the option, after getting the initial TP out of Nemesis, to back away from the fight, right? But they do end up committing, probably because they do see Rekkles in the mid lane, but it's such an awkward position to fight in these tight quarters against Cassiopeia and against Ornn. Like, where are you gonna go? Fnatic are all sitting in one place, while Rogue are completely split up, so the teamfight approach for them is just absolutely miserable. There's not much they can do in that situation whatsoever. I think this just, again, speaks to the ability of Fnatic, even when they're getting picked, when they're getting caught off guard, to choose fights where they are going to be in a strong position. The awareness is very, very good, and then here, it's just a miracle, honestly, that Fnatic are able to scurry away with so little HP, because if Finn picks up, you know, 2-3 extra kills on top of that, maybe that can turn the tides just a bit. You can see he has the finished Rabbit on Seth Cap now, but I don't think it's going to be enough gearing up for this Ocean Soul fight.
Yeah. And hugely crucial. We talked about the Baron being important, the Ocean Soul being important, and Fnatic are on the path to getting both. And you got to give credit to Hylissang in that last fight, dunking down on Inspired, and you think you burn so many major cooldowns on Inspired, maybe Rogue can turn the fight, but because they don't find that opportunity, now the Baron's in the hands of Fnatic, but they're not using it right now. Instead, they're looking for the full-on 5v5. They got the Ocean Soul as well, and you have to feel like that's the final nail in the coffin. This fight might just make you go from bad to worse. The kickback onto Hylissang to stop the engage from coming through. It's a bit of poke from the side of Rogue, but they don't have the reliable range to really harass Fnatic, especially with that Ocean Soul. Bwipo's just laughing all the way to the base as he walks it down mid.
Bwipo built a redemption. He's countering Rogue's circle comp with more circles, and it's working as he goes in at the tower.
Double knockup. The follow-up's going to be here too. Rekkles standing on the back line, firing uncontested. Bwipo's now been proc. They want to get something done, but the dunk down is there from Hylissang. It's absolutely massive. The set performance is here for the Fnatic support, and while Finn is going to dive in, he's going to try to make the difference. He's only buying a bit more time, back to full health, but the knockup is there, the chain CC is there, and Fnatic are here to end the game, and just like that, Rogue going back and forth, trading 1-for-1, but Fnatic now poised to end.
Came down to team fighting, and Fnatic doing just that, smashing through the remaining members of Rogue. There's no one left in their way between them and the next one.
While Rogue may now be locked into playoffs, Fnatic, with this win, have locked themselves in the top 4 alongside G2 and Origin.
Clean stuff coming through from Fnatic. I only got the last 15 minutes here on the desk with you, but honestly, Fnatic just won about every single team fight, even though Rogue tried to throw a couple of these sucker punches in there, going for picks in side lanes. Fnatic were just so willing to respond so quickly every time.
And the thing is like, Rogue looked like a good team. Fnatic just looked better. And I think that's the thing that's so incredibly difficult, is just these incremental advantages add up
so fast. And gotta say, really good game across the board from Fnatic. The consistent pressure bot lane to make sure the Zyrakan didn't get to do anything. I was a little bit worried when we saw Set. I mean, I know it's Rekkles Hylissang, but we saw Set Ezreal. I was like, oh man, how is this lane actually going to play out? Zyrakan are a terror to deal with, but Fnatic just shut it down from minute 1.
Yeah, the 4v2 lane in bot worked very well for Fnatic, as it usually does in the majority of their games. I mean, I think the set support was an interesting one, especially against Rakan in particular. I think Set's ult has a lot of really good value against Rakan, where it is that point-and-click hard CC, forces a Rakan to get a QSS if he wants to be safe in later fights especially, because you can just pick him up and instantly cut through the HP bar. So I did, as you said, like how Fnatic were willing to play around that bot side early on and make sure Rekkles had some breathing room to scale up, because with that lead, it didn't really feel like Hans was ever in a really good position in terms of itemization against Rekkles either.
Yeah, I think that once you fall behind in that situation, there really is no coming back. Because while I think Xayah does really well, scales pretty well as far as 3-item carries go, I think she has a really smooth curve upward, you don't get to play when the Ezreal gets ahead, and when there's so much zone control on the enemy team. It was a truly miserable game. So while it was really good to see Larssen and Finn able to play and interact, Hans was just a non-factor in this game.
Yep, it was unfortunate. And even then, Bwipo's itemization made the solo laners of Rogue a non-factor too, right? When you build these comps that are built, as you said, the shotgun, right? One punch to try and win the fight. Well, if you have a billion shields and a billion heals, you're just not going to be able to do that either.
Well, it's definitely a difficult scenario for Rogue, but the good news is they're locked playoffs. Fnatic are now locked top 4. Kia player of the game on Twitter, at LEC is the place, Bwipo, Selfmade, or Hilly. And when we come back, an interview with the victorious Bwipo after he has just locked top 4.
And we are back on the LEC stream. Thank you, Bwipo, for joining me. Congrats on the game and congrats on making it to playoff.
Thank you very much.
Did you get the same feeling you had yesterday? On Instagram, I could see a video of you saying that you had not quite a feeling of being on stage mode. So did you have the same feeling today about this?
I guess, yeah. I mean, playing on stage always feels like there's more pressure and there's like, it's weird to say, but I think most pro players will like feel the same way. Is like if you go on stage, it feels more like there's more pressure on you. So if you make a mistake, it feels worse, and if you play well, it feels better. But playing from the office, it doesn't really have that effect.
Okay, and I know I mentioned this a lot already on broadcast, but I mean we will have this setup until the end of the splits, and I wonder, knowing how mindset and routine can be important for the teams and players, do you think it's going to have a negative impact on Fnatic or other teams, or is it just something you can easily adapt to?
I think it's I don't think it will ever have a negative effect on any teams. I would be very surprised if a player plays worse in their own environment, in their own practice. Like it's where you play basically the whole year, right? So it's a bit weird that you're less comfortable in this setup than playing on stage. But I think what can end up happening is that certain players will start playing a lot better because they feel a lot more comfortable and there's less clutter around them. It's easier to focus on what's happening in the game. It's happening on your screen, right? Because when you lose focus, it's very easy to get distracted by the crowd or whatever's happening, and you don't really have that 100% focus on what's happening in the game when you're playing on a big stage.
Okay, and what about a more experienced team? Like, you have a system built, you've been working the same way for years, so is it different for you guys?
Not really. We're just playing the game. Again, it's more akin to scrims, so it's closer to that. I think people feel more loose, but at the same time, it's easier to calm down when you realize the game is in good hands.
Yeah.
It's going to be really free.
I couldn't agree more. Mental reset, and that's important here. And when it comes to adapting, I feel there's a difference between 2019 Fnatic and 2020 Fnatic, and I'm not talking about the jungle here. I think you played around flex picks in a more controlled and less predictable way, if I may say. So is there anything you changed around the approach you have of the game and as a team this year?
Not really. It's kind of surprising that people think that. I think we're pretty much the same. I'm not sure how to respond to that other than I think we're just playing better, so it looks that way.
Yeah, you are allowed not to agree with what I say also.
No, it's just, it's not like I disagree, I just think it comes because of the fact that we're playing better. Like, individually as a team, everything, I think everyone is just stepping up, and it makes flex picks look better, right? Like, when you flex champions like Pantheon, when you flex champions like even last year, we were flexing certain champions that didn't look as good, but again, it's easy to look good when everybody's doing their part and playing well. Today's game is another example. I think everyone played their part, and sure, one or the other might have looked a little bit better, but ultimately, everyone took their share and made the most out of it.
And it's good that, where everyone fits when it comes to getting to playoffs now. And we have the 6 teams now as of today. So anything that surprises you with the 6 team we have locked in playoff this year?
What are the 6 teams?
So there's G2, RGE, you guys, Mad Lions, Misfits, and Rogue. We don't know about standings yet, but we know that these 6 teams will compete in playoffs.
I mean, it's a little surprising that Misfits and Mad Lions came in, I suppose. Like, I think that, like, from the start of the split, anyone could agree with me that was not necessarily expected. It's a welcome surprise because they're very much rookie teams. They're bringing in new talent. I'm happy to see that they made it. And at the same time, it's unfortunate that XL Joey didn't make it. Again, had some history with Joey. So other than that, I think playoffs look pretty much the same. No, it's Fnatic, OG, G2, and then whoever can get close enough to try and contest. I think that's how it's always been, right? It's one of those 3 teams, so the top 3, and then everybody else tries to contest the top 3 for a potential semifinals, final spot, and then hope to upset, which will be interesting. Again, I think it's possible this year, having the online setup as well. I'm sure rookies will feel much more comfortable in their first big stage game. I know for a fact that myself, the biggest of, when you play on the big stage, it's not the same as LEC. It really isn't. When you hear the crowd roaring and your setup is actually shaking when you make a play, that's when you know it's for real. So not having to fight through that is what will help a lot of rookie players play more consistently and be less scared, I imagine, playing online.
It's a good training for rookies, in a way, to play in this setup, I feel. But we will jump into playoffs soon. We still have 1 more week to go with the regular season. Standings are still yet to be decided. I was just told you were player of the game here. I think it was a pretty close race, so any surprise on your side, knowing this?
Like I said, everyone played their part. It was hard to pick a player of the game there. I think I was just playing Ornn, and I hit my E twice on at the end of the game. I hit E on 2 people, and then I hit the carries twice, and something like that. And then, the game ends off of that. But like yesterday, I think any player on our team that was performing a bit better could have gotten it. So, I'm happy that I got it, but ultimately I'm most happy that, as a team, it's a hard decision to give MVP. And I think that feels really good as a player, because when the public has to really think alright, who was MVP here? That means that basically my whole team was playing very well, and that's a very reassuring feeling, knowing that it's our first 2 online matches. There were obviously question marks, how good are these people going to be showing up? Is it going to be any different? But ultimately, it was very much the same, in the sense that the teams that are fighting for a playoff spot or playoff bye, they feel a lot more pressure. And you could really feel it in both games we were playing today and yesterday. Like, for example, I felt like Rogue today was completely shut down. Like, they were scared of doing anything. Yeah. They kept getting pressured, and they didn't really want to reply, because if they did and it went wrong, the game would end. So, yeah, it's just the way things go near the end of the split. I think you'll see this next week as well. The teams will just shut down a bit and just be scared of making a mistake because they don't want to lose the game. As well as a team that makes one really good play will usually just win the game, because the other team will be too scared of contesting. Unless something magical, if you want, or surprising happens. That's usually the flow of the game. So near the end of the split, I feel like it's mostly teams re-evaluating their split and then having a look at, okay, what worked for us, what isn't working for us.
And making the right calls coming into playoffs, I guess, because best of 5 are going to be way different for them, and especially since we have rookie teams, but that's something we will see next week. But for now, we are going to take a 1-minute break. Thank you very much, Bwipo, for the interview.
You're welcome.
See you next week. And coming back, we will have Yves here debriefing on week 8. See you soon.
There we go then. Welcome everybody to our week 8 not so PGL for now, but nonetheless full of hopefully interesting insights. As always, a lot of interesting insights for Bwipo. With that win over Rogue, Fnatic does lock their spot in the top 4. And as said earlier, we do have all 6 of our playoff teams locked: G2, Fnatic, Origin, Mad Lions, Misfits, and Rogue, with G2, OG, and Fnatic all locked in the top 4, and Mad, Rogue, and Misfits in the fight for 4th place.
I think Bwipo made a very interesting point there in regards to which teams are going to be able to adapt to that playoff format easier, considering they're not going to play on a big stage. Especially looking at those rookie teams, I feel like Fnatic and G2 thrive in those environments, while, of course, some of these teams are untested on the bigger grounds. Rogue as well, haven't played on the big stage just yet. I think it's going to be interesting because these teams can now put themselves in a position where they use scrim practice to prepare for best of 5, because you can shape your practice exactly as you would shape a best of 5 that you would play in playoffs later down the line, because in all honesty, you're going to play it in the same location. So practice is going to be a bit more intense, and it's going to be a very unique situation that we have in front of us.
I also think it's interesting that there's such a clear delineation right now between, like, our top 3 teams and then 4, 5, 6. Our top 3 teams all, like, long tenure in the league, very experienced players. 4, 5, 6, a lot of rookies, a lot of younger players that have, like, recently entered the league too. So, like, I don't know, it just sets up something interesting for me, because we've had, you know, the Mad Lions upsets, the Misfits that jumped out to a really good start at the year. Rogue, of course, had higher expectations too, but I feel like this is the opportunity now for them to try and see, hey, can we actually take games off the big dogs in a best of 5?
I agree with you, and I think it's very exciting, the fact that we have a lot of these new players and these teams that are upstarts that are playing well, and it does set us up for possibly some super interesting storylines. I'm going to come back to our top 3 teams after this, but I want to give the time of day to a team like Mad, who we've hyped up a lot, and I think it's been hard for us to, how do I put this, to really realize how strong they actually are, and I'm leaning more towards quite strong. I mean, that doesn't sound so good, but the fact that they've taken down top teams, they consistently take down teams that are around and under them, and they show us different things, that makes me hopeful about their playoff chances.
I think for me, out of the bottom 3, if there was a team that is going to break the top, it's going to be Mad Lions. They've shown a higher peak performance than the other 2 teams in terms of Misfits and Rogue. I think Rogue always, they fall short against the best of the best. We saw it even today, we saw it yesterday, and with also Misfits, I feel like they've kind of gotten worse over time because their playstyle didn't have that longevity that we really like to see. They've been playing the same way over and over, and it's not really working any longer. So I agree with you, Mad Lions definitely looks the most exciting. We have to see how they are in best of 5 in terms of adaptation, because that's going to come in clutch. But I definitely think coming into playoffs, the dark horse is going to be Mad Lions.
Yeah, I think Dark Horse is important too, because I feel like out of our 6 teams, they're the team I am least confident in my own like expectations for them. Not that I don't think they can actually do it. No. It's like they could either do like some really good things, you know, potentially like displace like an Origin or something, they come out and have like a really great day, or they could come out and bomb. Like I really do think it could go either way. Whereas all the other teams, I feel like I know what I'm going to be getting from them, like within a pretty close margin of error whenever they show up on the Rift.
That's interesting, because now, like, if I'm looking at the standings, I feel like they are very fair in terms of ranking. I would put Misfits 6th, and then I put Mad Lions on 4th, just because of that X factor. I still see a world where Mad Lions could drop a series against Rogue, but still, just because I just believe harder in Mad Lions playing against the top 3, I'm kind of hoping they're going to be that 4th team, because they could cause some damage there in the best of 5s. But then again, imagining winning a best of 5 against G2 or Fnatic just seems impossible now that I think of it.
Yeah, I mean, it seems impossible, but so this is kind of a hard one to talk about, because we don't really know which influence playing from home has on everybody. But I think regardless of all of that, you can say that of course it is going to be more comfortable for some players to not have to deal with the elements as much, because we've been there in those arenas, right? It is loud, it is warm, the stage is shaking, you maybe can't hear each other that good, there is so much stress. It's gotta be good for some of these newer teams, and maybe conversely, it might be bad for the players that thrive in that environment.
So here's my take on that whole like stage versus no stage, like does it relieve pressure and whatnot. Like, yes, we shouldn't discount the fact, like, it's happening, right? It's a different environment, like, all the factors leading into it are going to be completely different, but I also don't want it to change my expectations for any of our teams, because, frankly, we don't have the proof yet, right? Now, if one of our teams, like, let's say a team like Misfits got off to a good start, started, you know, teetering off towards the, you know, towards where we are now, let's say they take off and start winning, like, all their games now that we're at home. Okay, maybe we can, like, start to speculate. But again, until one of their players like comes out and tells me like, yeah, you know, it wasn't just that our scrim started going great, it's the fact like we now feel all that the more comfortable, all that more confident. Like, I don't want it to change how I think about these teams until I'm literally told by them and have proof to back it up.
From a coach's standpoint, it's always about you know, it's always about distractions, right? Some players get affected by distractions, some players don't. Some players do better when they're happy, some players do better when they are sad. It's all about, you know, what kind of individuals you're dealing with. And I think the bottom line, when we look at the experienced teams, it didn't seem like it affected G2 or Fnatic at all. They rolled through everyone. It was very, very easy. I don't think that level of experience is going to be affected by anything, honestly, because they've just handled any type of distractions, career-wise, anything. When we look at the bottom side of the teams, you know, with Mad Lions and Misfits, I think they're very, very happy with this situation, because those distractions that you experience for the first time when you're playing on a stage, even as a coach, you know, standing there, you feel how everything vibrates, you feel the atmosphere, you feel the roars. There's a lot of new distractions that some players handle well and some players handle less. So I feel like coming into playoffs, the expectations, I think, should be relatively similar, because I think there's not going to be a team that kind of bombs because they're playing at home. I think that's the key thing.
Yeah, I think that's good, and that's also, you know, good context or a good way to look at it. Until they tell us it's the case, well, we can't know. I'm just trying to compare it to, like, we have been casting from home and broadcasting from home this week. It does feel different, you know? It's different to get the energy up there, and I wonder if you can draw the parallels, nonetheless.
Yeah, for sure. Like, for me, on my end, it's kind of weird because it's always the ritual, right? It's all about the habits. It's about the smells, all the walls that you're looking at, the environment, everything puts you. It's not a specific smell. I don't know, like Red Bull or something. It's just about the fact that you are in a different environment, puts you in a different mindset. Like, I put my suit on and I feel something. I feel serious about what's coming forward, and I know what's in front of me. It's a very specific ritual that puts you in a mindset, especially in preparation for game day. And I think this was the key thing. Like, if I was in a coach's position and I had to play all of a sudden online, I think on game day I would just remodel the whole room. I would like paint the walls, put on some pictures, something, so people are in a different mindset, and you build a routine and a habit in preparation for online games. So maybe some of the bad scrim habits where you're practicing and testing limits don't transfer onto the stage. There's a lot of curious questions that need to solve, and it all depends on which team that you're working with, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think it's interesting. Well, we'll be able to ask our players as we continue in the next few weeks what they may have implemented. One team I did want to briefly touch on before we continue is Misfits. From the winning streak to now an 0-2 week and some cracks in the armor. What do we make of that?
Honestly, I think Misfits definitely have slowed down a lot. I think they are the 6th best team out of our top 6 because I feel like they're quite predictable. Today, I felt like Mad Lions comfortably played the mid to late game better, and they even tried to play the game differently by playing through top, and there was that botched dive. So Mad Lions, in general, trying to expand on their own kind of weaponry, which is good. But Misfits still, I could summarize them as a team when they have control of a mid lane and they can play into top side and they can roll over and continue to snowball. Things look good. When something kind of slows them down, like some of these teams that have gotten better in the mid to late game, they tend to look a lot worse. Usually it's off of huge snowballs, and even today, Razork actually managed to get a couple of kills in that Jarvan, but it just didn't seem to matter because Mad Lions was just smarter later down the line. So I think Misfits definitely the 6th best team right now in top 6. And in the span of the whole spring split, I still think it's good, but I think maybe that win streak made them a bit overhyped.
Maybe. Febivin is staring into my soul. So hopefully Misfits, they work a bit on their form as they go into the playoffs. Let's take a look at the schedule. We will be back next Friday, still online. As a reminder, the remainder of the Spring Split will be played remotely online. That is including everything in the next couple of weeks, including the finals. And this is the schedule. Of course, a lot is locked in, but that fight for top 4 is the one that we're mainly looking at.
I think the game that everyone is going to be waiting for is Mad Lions versus Fnatic at the end of the day. All the other games look like it's playoffs versus not playoffs teams. So I think for me, it's like Mad Lions, we said, do they have the ability to pull off any upsets against the top teams? This is a good chance to try and showcase that, even if they do come in as the underdogs.
It's also the last time Mad Lions faced Fnatic, it looked rather easy for Mad Lions. This was Nemesis playing Ryze, and Humanoid was all over the place. Good team fighting, good flanks from Shadow and Kaiser, and they honestly, on that specific day, looked like the better team. But we all know Fnatic on second half has just been way better. They leveled up and are honestly insane. I'm also excited for the G2 Schalke rematch, because that was when Schalke finally broke their lose streak, which is kind of hilarious to do that against G2. Maybe Schalke will continue their role, because honestly, ever since Forgiven was removed from the roster, they look like a decent team.
Yeah, they do have that final spurt going. They're playing very, very well, and who knows, maybe they might even take down G2 Esports. We're going to close off here soon. I would just like to thank everyone who is still listening and who watched over the weekend for bearing with us as we explore how all of this has gone, and by doing everything remotely, which we are not used to. It was a tight turnaround, and thank you for bearing with us. We learned a lot of lessons, I would say. Is there anything else you guys want to say as we close off our first online broadcast?
Just thanks for watching and good night. And then Yamato can also talk after me.
Okay, thank you for the permission, Andrew. I'm so grateful.
Great.
No, it's been, seeing how everyone works behind the scene. Honestly, everyone is really, really, I've been amazed by the level of, intensity that we brought to the table and the amount of improvements over a single day. And everyone's working super, super hard, and it's just going to get better and better. So I'm excited for what comes next.
Yeah, me too. We will be very excited to see you next week. Of course, the LCS is next on the docket, and we wish them the best of luck for their broadcast as well. I hope everything goes swimmingly. Their first match over there will be TSM versus Golden Guardians, and as for us, we'll be back next Friday for the final week of the regular season. See you then. Bye-bye.